all the decisions, it doesn't matter what decisions you're going to make, someone will say that was the wrong decision. It doesn't matter if this is the board or the other people. Obviously, it doesn't matter what the decision is. Someone will basically say that was wrong, right? Or you shouldn't have done that, or whatever it is, right? And so all the decisions, all the hard decisions that you will need to make, you will need to make them by yourself. And this is very, very demanding. Not a lot of people are capable of doing that. Not a lot of people want the responsibility. But those that are capable and want the responsibility, they're probably going to be pretty good CEOs. The other important part is that at the end of the day, and we mentioned that in the fundraising, at least at the beginning, investors invest if they like the CEO and they like the story. That's the only thing that matters, right? The rest of the team doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they look at it in the way that they would say, if I like the CEO and the CEO looks like someone that is capable of making decisions, if the team is not right, that's the problem of the CEO. If the CEO is not right, that's the problem of me as an investor. And so they would like to trust the CEO. They don't care about the rest of the team. Not exactly. But in general, they less care about the rest of the team than they are on the CEO. So here's something that we need to differentiate between what the CEO would need to do, at least at the beginning, and what the CEO would need to have. So make decisions, raise funds. The two most important things that the CEO will need to do in the first year. Build strong management team, execute, so the ability to actually of the organization to execute is the responsibility of the CEO, and remain focused at all time. So this is really what we need to do. But what we need to have is the ability to make fast decisions and the ability to keep up to those decisions. And I will show you in a second a research done by Harvard Business Review, which basically indicates, looking at all the, not all, but in a lot of CEOs, and measuring the behavior that make them more successful versus not. Obviously, harnessing the rest of them, so that will be leadership. I want everyone to follow the leadership that I have. Understanding the market and being able to adapt fast, in particular if we are a startup. But regardless, our market is dynamic and changing all the time. And if we stuck in a certain point of time, then we end up like Kodak or Blockbuster or other companies that fail to adapt fast enough. And the ability to consistently deliver. So this is very important, right? You say something and you step up to that and you deliver. And the important is that you don't necessarily over-exceed your promises. You deliver to your promises. And in particular, if you look at public companies, the consistency in the ability to deliver results is what makes the company worth much more than the ability to exceed expectation all the time. If you say you're going to have 1,000 users at the end of the quarter and you have 1,001, you're actually very consistent. If you have 5,000, then I start to ask myself, okay, so is that lack of planning or is that inability to do what? And if you are consistently exceeding the expectation, you think you're doing great. You're not. If this is the case, then make the expectations higher, right? If you have the ability to bring 5,000 users and you think you are, then tell that you're going to bring 5,000 users. So I want you to think for a second as a good CEO, as a conductor of an orchestra, right? Doesn't play any instrument by himself. Everyone knows what they expect to do. Everyone knows what to do. In reality, if the conductor is not going to be there and you would ask the orchestra to play, it's probably going to be good play. Strong management teams is a clear indication of amazing CEO. We had at Waze the same management team pretty much from the beginning. That was very strong. Actually, half of the management team were CEOs and founders before. And so the ability to harness strong people into the management team is very powerful. And it's the same in many of my startups. And the more you look at the more successful startups, and this is really the clear indicator of a strong management team, that the CEO brought on board and give them the not just the role, but also the space to become successful. No, change the CEO. Look, the CEO is more important for the organization than it is for the investors. And so if the CEO is not the leader, if people are not following the CEO, and the CEO is unable to drive the organization into execution, then the CEO is wrong. Now, if you'll bring someone else that is capable, that someone else is going to be able to raise capital as well. So the Harvard study, and they essentially, they took 16,000 CEOs of different companies, and then they started to look for the behavior that are consistent across those that are more successful CEOs, or their companies are more successful. And what they find out is that deciding with speed and conviction is very, very critical. Actually, the likelihood of a company to be successful, if the CEO is deciding with speed and conviction, is 12 times higher than if it's not. Now, this is the hardest part of the CEO, right? Making decisions. It doesn't matter if this is the right decision or the wrong decision. In reality, all the decisions that we are making are the right decision, because we don't know what it was like if we will choose a different path. The only problem is if you are not making decisions, or you keep on changing the decision. So today is Saturday, we're going to decide this, right? Tomorrow is Sunday, we're going to decide differently. This doesn't work. You lose the leadership within the organization. They don't trust you anymore because you're not making consistent decisions and you don't step up to them. The other one that is actually very powerful is adapting proactively, right? The market is change your strategy. If you stack with the old strategy, even though that the market has changed, you're going to lose the company. Now that might need to say, you know what, the market has changed, we're going to change the decision that we have made here. And you need to do that pretty fast. If you don't do that, you simply remain irrelevant to the new market. You don't move fast enough with the market, and you die. Some other parts, engaging the rest of the organization, including all the stakeholders that we have. So not just employees, also board, and also investors or shareholders that we have, and also in some cases customers or strategic partners. You would like to engage them if you're going to make changes. Systematic metrics, delivering reliability. Right? There are some stories on someone that was consistently exceeding the expectation, and still he didn't establish the trust. Because every time he said, I'm going to deliver X, and he delivered 2X. And someone else delivered X. When he said that they are delivered X, they established the consistency and the trust, and everyone trusts them that they are going to deliver what they say. And upgrading the management. Look, if your management is weak, you change that, everyone enjoys that. And you yield better results. The problem with this model is that in all of those models, we would miss those people. So look at those, Steve Jobs or Larry Ellison or Jeff Bezos or Travis from Uber, right? And you start to ask yourself, okay, engaging for impact, not really. Adapting proactively, actually in some cases, yes. Delivering reliability, not exactly. So you look at those, and you look at those list of CEOs that are maybe the most amazing CEOs in the recent years, and you say, but they don't fit. In reality, they don't fit. These are one of the kind. And you can add to that also some other great names, but these are one of the kind. So when to replace a CEO? That answers your question. When the CEO starts to bullshit you. When you don't get persistent answers or real answers from the CEO, right? In a lot of cases, I tell my CEOs, look, when I ask why, I want answers in words. When I ask how much, I want answers in numbers, not in words. Right? In words, that means that you don't have the numbers. And so when I start to get answers that are not consistent with the reality, or the CEO starts to bullshit me, or the rest of the organization, that's good time to replace the CEO. When the team does not trust the CEO, when this happens, then the CEO lost the leadership. And it's good time to replace the CEO. If the team is weak, if the management team is weak, it's good time to replace the CEO. It's basically, look, at the end of the day, it boils down into the nature of the CEO, right? So if you build weak management team, what it really means is that you either don't know that they are weak, which is not good, or you want to have a weak team so it wouldn't, put you in the shadow, or it turns out to be a weak team and you don't know how to fix that. None of them is good sign. So if the team is weak, I would say that's the responsibility of the CEO. CEO has built a weak team. In order to change that, it's not that we need to change the team. We need to change the CEO. So, if yesterday we had the startup tips as the most important slide of the day, then I think this is the most important slide of the day. Decision-making tool. So we agree that making fast decisions with conviction is the most important ability of the CEO that we need to have, and the most important part of the organization. So one of the approaches is to flip a coin. Now you think of that and you say, what does it mean? And I'll tell you what does it mean. So one day I came to my dad and I said, look, I don't know what to choose, this one or this one. And that was about my career path. And he said, I'm going to take a coin out of my pocket and I'm going to flip the coin. And before the coin drops, you make the decision. So what we are really trying to do is encourage our gut feeling. Our gut feeling is right. But we might need some encouragement for that. We might need someone else to tell us it's okay to make that decision. And therefore, what we are trying to do is force the decision because we know what's the right decision. In most cases, we know what's the right decision. And if we don't know what's the right decision, it doesn't matter. Make one. It doesn't matter. We don't have enough information to know. We have limited information. These two alternatives looks about equal to us. Choose one. Choose and execute one. So flipping a coin is not a bad idea. In particular, if the idea behind it is force the decision, make the decision. So today is the first day of the rest of our life. It's actually the same, right? Make the decision. Don't wait any longer, because right now, if you're not making the decision, you're living the inability to make decision, you're living the past. If you make the decision, you're starting today to live the future. And the last one is, by the way, they are all the same. They are all the same. They are going to force the decision. The last one is ask yourself, okay, let's assume for a second that I quit or I die tomorrow, right? And someone else is going to be in my place as the CEO. What decision this new CEO is going to make? Now, the reason that this is so powerful is that the new CEO does not have the history, does not carry all the past history of where we are right now. And this new CEO is only looking from this point into the future, right? There is no past for that new CEO. If we can, for a second, relieve ourselves from the past and just look into the future, then the decision that we are able to make is faster, is actually probably the right decision. And in particular, we can make that decision. Now, it's a lot of cases that you tell yourself, you know what, I knew what is the right decision for a long period of time, but you haven't made that decision. Then make it. So, so some of the hardships that I've seen in different startups, and this is this is definitely not easy. And in a lot of cases, it will nail down into we are in the middle of the desert or in the middle of the phase. We haven't proved what we need to prove, and we ran out of cash. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen together, right? So we are in the middle of the desert and we have enough cash, then we will get out of the desert. That's not a problem. It will take slightly longer or slightly lesser. It doesn't really make any difference. We have enough funding for that. Most of the problems will end up into we ran out of cash and we were unable to raise the next round because we haven't reached the achievements that we need to achieve in order to be able to raise the next financing round. And usually that will include, okay, we fired people, not because they were not good, because we needed to save on cash. We reduced salaries, sometimes to zero amongst management or amongst founders, and sometimes to the entire organization. In most cases, by the way, that will be management is taking large cut in their paychecks, and the rest of the organization don't even know about it. Sometimes we get to the level that we completely ran out of cash and we give notice to all the employees that we're going to shut down the company in 1 month from now. And we know that you can leave, but we would ask you to stay and help us to go through this hardship period of time. Sometimes you die in the middle of the desert. You are unable to actually raise the capital. You are unable to prove the phase. And then you die. And that will happen as well. So most of the startups actually went into this hardship period of time. They tried to cross the desert with not enough funding, and they got stuck in the middle of the desert, and they tried to raise capital, which was unsuccessful or was successful. And during this period of time, they had very hard time. Now, we can look at it at different aspects, right? So ways. So we started the company in 2008. And then 2010, we ran out of cash. And we needed to raise new capital, and we were still not good enough in the Western world. So the only example that we had that the model was working was actually in Litva, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Ecuador, few small places, insignificant places. And so everyone said, okay, so this model is very, very interesting for small and unimportant places, but not in the Western countries. And we need to raise capital, right? Or, to add to that, this is the year that Google actually launched their free turn-by-turn navigation. Right, so we are the only free turn-by-turn navigation. We have a model that we have proven in some small places. We claim that it will work in other places as well. We go raise capital based on that. And people are saying, but it doesn't work on large countries, right? Or it doesn't work in the Western world, or it's not good enough against the competition that is available in those markets. And then Google turned out with their free turn-by-turn navigation, and basically everyone says that Waze is doomed. If we can sell that for, our investors said, if you can sell the company for $30, $40, $50 million, you should do that. And we were pretty much the only one that believed in our journey. And our journey was not about navigation. It was about helping drivers to avoid traffic jams, right? And so we keep on fighting. And eventually, you keep on hammering, and we needed to cut the salary for the management, and we eventually went out of these dark ages and were able to raise capital. And then we started to see how things are turning out. But during this period of time, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You believe that it's there, but you don't see that. And some of the venture capital says, we wouldn't even touch Waze with a stick, right? So we don't believe in anything that they're doing. and you see the hardship, and then they're telling you that, and you don't know if you're going to believe yourself or going to believe them. And you keep on fighting because the cause is right and because the team is right. You keep on fighting, and eventually we were able to get out of that. Now, what if we wouldn't? Assume for a second that we wouldn't be able to raise capital this period of time. We would have died. And there will be no ways, and no one else will carry on trying to do the same thing, because there was a company that tried to do that and it was unsuccessful, so why should I start from the beginning? So we are pretty lucky in that sense. Fairfly. When we started Fairfly, we basically say that this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to build a system that monitors people's itinerary after they make the reservation, and if the price drops, so this is the price that you paid, and this is cancellation fee. So if the price drops here, you're actually leaving money on the table, right? And so we will let you know, and we will actually enable you through the app to do one-click rebook the same flight. And then it turns out that users are it's not easy for them to do that. It's not easy for them to do that because sometimes we scan all the time, so we find a better deal in the middle of the night, and we send them a notification. They wake up in the morning, and when they said, okay, I would like to rebook, it's not available anymore. And sometimes it was because people were not sure that maybe they're going to lose their seat or different factors. And not a lot of people on the consumer side would actually, so they really like to get a better deal. But when they got the better deal, they not necessarily converted into an actual deal. And then we decided that we're going to go into businesses where the decisions making can be based on policy, right? So a corporate can decide that if the saving is more than X, you do that automatically. It doesn't matter anymore, right? And so we started to go into, we kind of changed the go-to-market strategy. Instead of consumers going into corporates, and we ran out of cash during this pivot of the go-to-market strategy. And during this period of time that you ran out of cash, we are trying to raise capital, and then we ran into a situation that we actually had to fire all the employees. We gave all the employees a notice that they are going to be fired within 1 month because we are running out of cash. And during this month, we actually were able to raise capital and change that and revert that. And this is pretty consistent across nearly all the companies. You don't have enough funding to go through the period of time that you needed. And when you get towards the end, then you do drastic things, right? So obviously you are not in a good position to negotiate a good deal when you are running out of cash. And by the way, this is why I'm saying that the budget that we are building initially is very, very lean. Very lean, because we might need this period of time at the end of the journey when we are not there yet. When it takes longer to reach into product market fit or into scaling or into globalization or into proving monetization, we might need more time. And if we don't have more time and we have large organization, that's going to burn cash faster than we think it is. FX, actually, we had something fairly similar. We started in Israel. And we were actually making an impact in Israel. And then we decided, okay, so we have product market fit in Israel. Let's move to the US. Turns out that this is a different product. Different product to the level that that we actually need to rebuild a lot of the stuff from scratch. So the nature of the beast is the same. People are paying high fees and they don't know that, and they can reduce them. But the implementation and the financial products are so different then that it turns out that that you essentially need to rebuild pretty much everything or most of it. And so we spend long period of time on product market fit in Israel. Now we need to rebuild the product. When you look at the entire period of time, then we haven't reached product market fit in 3 years, right? So it took us 18 months to reach that in Israel, and we needed another 18 months to reach that in the US. 3 years, we haven't been at product market fit there yet. So obviously now you run out of cash because of the amount of time that you spend, and you start to look for raising new capital. And then it turns out that people are telling you, but you haven't reached product market fit. Or you have reached product market fit in some place that it doesn't matter anymore. And so consistently, company over company over company, the issue was the same. You did not have enough funding to cross through the desert and reach to the end of the phase that you wanted to demonstrate. In most cases, that will be around product market fit. That is where most of the startups will die. Now, the reason that they will die is because if you reach product market fit and you are unable to prove the next phase, let's say that the next phase is globalization, right, or business model, then you come back here and you say, okay, you know what, I'm smaller than I thought I am. I'm actually on the phase, not of the phase of proving product market fit and monetization. I'm only at the phase of proving product market fit, and I would be raising less capital at lesser valuation and retry that. If you haven't reached into product market fit, then you basically have nothing. You have a concept that is proven wrong. Because you basically, when you started the journey, the story was, this is the problem I'm going to solve, and this is the solution I'm going to build for that, and give me money, and I'll get to the solution that is working, right? And so someone gave you money, and you were unable to show that you have a solution that is working, that you are able to solve the problem and create value. And so you go back to the drawing board, and if you want to raise capital, basically you will need to say, look, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is the concept I tried already and it doesn't work, and now I have a new concept. Doesn't sound too promising, right? So the fallback is going back to square one. If you're already at product market fit and you are unable to move towards scaling or internet or globalization or monetization, then you fall back into, I have product market fit, I want to restart my approach. That was actually pretty consistent across all of those startups. When you need additional funding, you run into a situation that you still haven't completed the milestones that you need in order to get funded. So this is Waze, Fairfly, Engie. We actually replaced the CEO at Engie. And there was a point of time that the CEO basically said, I need someone better to lead the company and doing better execution. And we brought someone else on board. And it takes time. This is not an easy transition. This is a very hard transition if you don't have the cooperation of the organization. But even if you do have, it still takes time. Now, during this period of time, the company is not making enough progress. And then you end up with, okay, I'm in the middle of the desert and I ran out of cash. Nearly all the time, you are in the middle of the desert, and it doesn't matter if this is the first desert or the second desert or whatever desert, you are in the middle of the desert, you ran out of cash. There was, even at the beginning, there was for Engie a hard time to raise capital, and the entire founding team was there with no salaries for more than a year, I think. Now also the employees. How do you keep employees a year with no pay? Promises. Promises. So some examples of failed startups, and look, this is not easy, right? So you have a dream, and you fail, and then you get up and stand up and go to the next dream. As an entrepreneur, you'll never give up, right? It doesn't matter how many times you'll fail; you'll never give up. And this is dramatic, right? So most of the startups will eventually fail. That's the stats, right? Most of the failures in the early stage are based on the fact that the team was not right, or the decision to change the team was not there. or we haven't reached product market fit on time. Maybe it's not going to be worthwhile. You try to reach product market fit and you reach that, and then you try to build monetization and you are unsuccessful. You go back to square one, not square zero. So you have product market fit, you tried monetization again, it doesn't work. And then you tell yourself, maybe it doesn't worthwhile of keep on fighting for that. Let's build a different startup, maybe. But if you fail in product market fit, you're probably going to shut down the startup. So some examples. So this startup was trying to build an in-car projection system that project the navigation system through the windshield. So you actually look at the navigation system, and what you see is that the arrow is actually on the road where you need to make the turns. So really beautiful. And the CEO came to me with this approach, and he actually had the capabilities of building that, and I liked that. And I joined the board, and I invested some money in the company. And then over time, I realized that this CEO is doing a lot of things wrong, right? And from rather than building strong team, building weak team, and different things. And there was a point of time that I told the guy, look, if we really want to be successful, you need to hire a new CEO. You're not good at being a CEO, and you're not going to be successful in doing that. And he obviously didn't like that and didn't want to listen to that, and as a result, I left. And then when he ran out of cash, he was unable to raise capital. If investors looked at that and say, okay, no traction, no strong management team, we're not going to reinvest. For me, there was a key learning. And then for the rest of my startups, when I start a dialogue with the CEO, I tell the CEO something that is straightforward. Sooner or later, we will have disagreements. Maybe it's next week, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 10 years down the road, but we will have disagreements. If this is about where the company should go, then you're right and I'm wrong. If this is about your ability to remain the CEO, then I'm right and you're wrong. And this is the kind of agreement that I have with all of my CEOs, because they will not be able to see if they're not the right choice. No one is able to see that they're not the right choice. No one wants to believe that. And it's very important that there is someone that they trust from the beginning that will be able to tell them that. Now, whether or not will I stay a friend with this guy after that, don't know. But is that increasing the likelihood of the company to remain successful, to be successful? Probably yes. Bundle. Bundle is very interesting. We started that in 2010. And the idea was to build a group buying platform. So you think of Groupon and you say, okay, but what is Groupon? Groupon is essentially group selling. Right? So they decide this is the product that we're going to sell. And if we will have 500 people, then we will sell that at discount. And I said, no, I want to build something. I want to buy something completely different. This is what I want to buy. And I'm going to bring other people with me to get a volume discount for the same product. So essentially, building the group buying starts from a single person that builds the group to buy a specific product. And then we're going to ask vendors to provide us with a quote to 10 pieces of large screen TV or whatever, right? So obviously, if you will go to a store and say, I would like to buy 10 of those, give me a volume discount, they will. And that was our thesis at the beginning. And we thought that, everyone heard that and thought that this is brilliant. And turns out that people don't know what they want. So we didn't have enough leaders to start groups. Now I want you to imagine the following. Say that you're going into a restaurant and you ask for the menu and they bring you the menu and you open up the menu and it's a blank page and there is a pencil there and it says write whatever you want and the chef is going to make it for you. We don't know what we want. it's much easier for us to choose from a list than to basically say this is exactly what we want, and then the rest will follow. And so our underlining assumption was wrong. We assume that people know what they want, and they would create the groups around themselves to actually have the volume discount. So the incentive is essentially the volume discount that they will get. And it happens only in rare cases. Most people are not leaders. They are followers. And so it's much easier for them to join an existing group than create a group. And we basically failed because we did not have traction. Our underlining assumptions was unsuccessful or was not right. And we decided that it doesn't work. And we gave up on that. About a year and a half into the doing. Migo. So when you order a package from Amazon, is that going to be delivered to your house, to your door, or is that going to be delivered to the post office near your house here in Brazil? Door. So in Israel, they're not going to deliver the packages to your door. They're going to deliver a note that tells you you have a package at the post office, and then you need to go to the post office, and the post office, usually you need to go there between 8 to 12 a.m., right? And this is where most people are actually at work. And because it's only a short period of time, there are long lines there, and there is no parking, right? And so essentially you get the note, which is a penalty note, right? You need now to waste your time, go and stand in line and in order to get your package. And so we built a service that you actually scan this note that tells you there is a package for you, and someone is going to go into the post office and deliver the package for you. Now, in reality, in the world, there are 3 different models of postal services, of packages, right? There is the US model, which basically brings the package to your door, and if you're not there, they leave the package by the door. There is the Israeli one, which essentially they're not even trying to bring you the package. They bring you the note, and then you need to go into the post office and pick up your package. And there is the European one that basically say they are going to try to deliver. You're not at home because they're there at 11 a.m., and then they would leave you a note. And so they will try to do the first delivery attempts, which actually works in about 40% of the cases. And in 60% of the cases, it's the Israeli model. And we said, okay, so the problem exists in a lot of places, not in the US, but in many markets. Let's solve that. Now, during the period of time, the postal services in Israel improved dramatically. And so they started to offer longer hours. They started to offer delivering the packages to the grocery store next to your house. They started to do a delivery of the packages themselves. And the perception of the problem, that was the problem, is no longer there. And we decided to give up because the perception is that the problem is no longer there. And so if the problem disappears, we decided to give up. Now, obviously, we didn't have enough traction. If we would have thousands of packages delivered every month by that period of time, we might have taken that one step further and say, okay, let's go to another market. But we only had, dozens of packages a day being delivered, and so no traction. Perception of problem disappears. We gave up. Fair sale. Now you should listen. So the concept.
I'm listening all the time.
No, but this is something specific for you.
Sure.
So fair sale concept was very similar to fair fly concept, but for pretty much everything that we buy. So if I buy something in the US and this particular item will go on sale next week, if I will go back to the store with the receipt, I will get the difference. Now, the only problem is that no one is doing that because I already bought the product and I don't know that this is on sale this week, right? And so we build a mechanism that basically says, you know what? Scan the receipt of everything that you buy, and we're going to monitor everything for you. And if some particular item will go on sale, within the period of time that you're actually entitled to get the difference, then we will let you know that you're leaving money on the table and you can go to the store and get the difference, or we can do that for you and split the difference. So what we needed from people to do is actually scan the receipt and send us the receipt. And the idea behind it is that you essentially build a database of what people are actually buying. This is the most important database in the retail market. And so we started, and we had some low tractions amongst physical stores. So people were, they didn't really scan all the receipts of the stuff that they're buying. And then we said, okay, we're going to take that online. And we enable that service also for Amazons and online services where you can actually do that automatically. So all we need is to have an access to your Amazon account, and we can monitor all the stuff that you bought. And every time that there is a price changes, then we can claim the difference. And a few things happened. Number one, Amazon stopped that policy because there was too much noise into their customer support, and they said we are not going to support that. But on the traction on the side of the physical stores, we actually had nice traction. So people are scanning receipts and getting discounts, and not getting discounts, getting refund of the stuff that they bought, and the system was working, not in volumes yet, but it was actually working. And then the CEO came to me and said, "Look, I'm unable to get funding. We don't have enough traction, and my wife quit her job, and I need to get a salary. I need to find a job, and I cannot continue that anymore." And at this point of time, we decided that, okay, if you're not going to continue that, we're going to stop that, or we're going to put that on hold until we'll find a new team to do that, or until your wife will find a new job and can sponsor you for this journey. And so it's a kind of on hold. But meanwhile, I haven't restarted that. As you can see, I like the category of money left on the table, right? So you can figure it out, and this is, but in reality, look, so we had some users that we brought them back 62 cents. And they called us and said, "This is the most amazing thing." Now I'm speaking about a friend of mine that is actually making $500,000 a year. And he got back 62 cents. And he said, "This is the most amazing thing I ever had." And I asked him, "Why? Why do you care?" And say, "This is the first time in my life that I'm getting money back." And so the reward of actually outsmarting the system or figuring out something that, finding a money that you didn't know that you have, it's actually very rewarding. So people think about it as a prize, right? As winning the lottery, rather than this is money that I left on the table. And so this is another example. Do I have more? No, not really. So we are approaching 12:30, and I think someone told me that I need to finish by about this time. So maybe just one more section about traffic problem in general and how to solve that. And then we will be finishing for today. And by the way, I was told that here in Porto Alegre, it's the best place in Brazil to have real meat. So going to a churrascaria later, we will try that. Traffic problem. So a few aspects. One is that in Porto Alegre last year, the number of new cars that was added is 10%. And now I might be wrong. It might be 8 or 11%, but that's the order of magnitude. And the other side of this problem is that the total area of the roads did not increase by this 10%. It's increased by less than that. So traffic jams today are more severe than they were last year. Another point of view, car utilization is about 4%, right? So in about 1 hour a day, we are using our car, and the rest of the day, the car is actually just occupying a parking place. And maybe it's not 4%, maybe it's 6%. Not significant amount of time. So most of the time, our car is the most underutilized resource that we have. Now, this is unless you have private jet or something like that. This is probably less. An autonomous vehicle, is that a solution, or is that going to increase traffic jams or reduce traffic jams? So we are not sure. I'm actually pretty sure. So we see here traffic jam, right? 5 lanes of traffic. And by the way, this is somewhere in Seattle, I think, but it doesn't really matter. Right? Traffic jam. We know that. We have seen this picture before. Exactly what we have here are 200 people in 177 vehicles. This is exactly what we see here. Now let me do a magic here. I'm going to take the cars away. Just leave the people there. This is it. This is what we are actually seeing here. 200 people occupying many blocks of 5 lanes. Let me put them in bus, right? This is it. The same 200 people fits into 3 buses. And the rest is wide open. Is Uber better or less? Actually, what happens in Uber is that in many cases, the driver is now driving to pick up someone, right? So in this period of time that the driver is alone in the car is actually not being used. And so the number of cars on the road to serve those 200 people is actually going to be higher. Some of the cars are driving with the passengers, some of the cars are driving without the passenger. Now let me take that one step further. Let's say that there are autonomous vehicles. And then what we're going to end up with is many cars are driving empty, with no one there, right? In reality, if we don't need to pay the salary of the driver, then it might be cheaper for the car to keep on running around all the time than to actually parking someplace. In particular, if we mentioned earlier yesterday that it's very possible that parking garages will be shut down because no one is going to use them, right? So the cars will keep on running around. And we will have 500 cars trying to serve 200 people. So traffic jams are going to be even more severe. The overall utilizations of a single vehicle is going to be much higher, but the overall usage of the roadways is going to be more dense, and traffic jams are going to be even more severe. So it's quite obvious that the solution relies in our ability to have better ratio of people to vehicles. Right? So if right now it's about 177 vehicles and 200 people, this is the US, right? In other countries it's a little bit better than that. If we don't improve that into 2 or 3 or 15 people per vehicle, the traffic jams are going to be even more severe. So how do we do that? So one approach is, by the way, carpool is going to improve that dramatically, right? But the better approach is focusing on public transportation and making a public transportation system that is reliable, that is efficient, that is fast, that is safe, and it's affordable. Now, do we have that here? Not really. Do we have that someplace? Actually, most of the major European cities have very efficient public transportation system. You think of New York City and you tell yourself, I'm not going to drive there, right? I'm not going to even use taxi because of traffic jams. I'm going to use the subway. So what makes the subway efficient? It's close. The next station is less than a quarter of a mile away. So it needs to be really, it's built like a grid. It's close, it's fast, it's reliable, it's affordable. Grid-based network. Right, so we want something that goes across and north, south, and east, west, and the differences between one line and one line and another line is less than 400 meters, maybe 200 meters. So the next station is always less than 5 minutes away. We want dedicated lanes, so they're fast. If they have dedicated lanes, they don't stop at traffic jams, right? So we can think of subway that have absolutely dedicated lanes, right? But it doesn't need to be that way. I can actually take in every other street one lane and say this is a dedicated lane for public transportation. Now, I don't want large buses. I want small buses, high frequency. So imagine that there is small bus every 2 minutes. And you're less than 200 meters in average, or less than 400 meters from a station. And this is grid-based. You are always maximum two lines away from where you need to go. And you build that, and you actually create a public transportation system that is efficient, that is reliable, that is faster than driving, and reach everywhere. And then people will prefer that because simply it's faster. Now, if you make that free, then it's even better. I mean, today most of the public transportation are subsidized anyhow. So why not making 100% subsidizing that rather than 70% or 80%? What difference does it make? So if you build that, you actually remove traffic jams. Can the mayor decide on that? Actually, yes. In particular here it's easier. In São Paulo, it's going to be more complex. But here, if someone wants to solve traffic problems, they can. So maybe one more story, and then we'll. Actually, I'm quite surprised that I finishing up on time. Look, it's the first time that I'm doing the whole session, right? And so it's the first time. I didn't know how long it will take me to do that, and I was practicing, and I thought that it's going to be about on time, but I'm willing to stay here until rather late. So anyhow, so during the waze years, and even after that, I had a lot of people come to me and say, thank you for Waze. You helped me to avoid traffic jams. You helped me to avoid speeding tickets. By the way, I did not have a speeding ticket since 2008. And so a lot of people came and thanked me. But then about a year ago, someone came to me and say, thank you. You saved my marriage. And I said, what? And then he said, because of Waze, we don't need to argue in the car anymore. So you saved my marriage. And so I turned out to be a marriage consultant as well. But then I own the best story to my son. I have 5 kids. One of them is 19 years old, and he started to drive about 2 years ago, and he really likes to drive. He would take the car if he needs to go to the next door neighbor. And so one day, I asked him to drive me to the airport, and I thought that he's really going to jump all over and drive me to the airport. And then he said, my phone is broken. I can't. And I said, what? I want you to drive me in the car, not in your phone, right? And he said, my phone is broken. I don't know how to get there. And I said, I was scratching my head, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be in the car with you, and I'll tell you how to get there. And then he said, and how would I come back? And so we lose orientation, but not logic. Thank you very much.